Welcome once again to another lesson on the New Testament is Fake series, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, on the Yalak Emet channel. This is January 25th, 2021. My lesson is titled, Your Abomination is in Your Mouth. And it's in your mouth because it is what you teach people, even though the Most High did not teach that to Israel in the Torah. Jeremiah chapter 23, starting at verse 25. I have heard what the prophets said, that prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. So they are prophesying before the people and say they're prophesying in the name of the Lord, but they are prophesying deception, falsehood. And they're saying, I have dreamed, which is basically saying they've gotten a message from God through the Spirit in their dreams. How long shall this be in the heart of the prophets that prophesy lies? Yea, they are prophets of the deceit of their own heart. So he's saying this deception is coming out of their own heart. They're speaking these things, teaching the people, but these are just lies. They're teaching the people to go after other gods, and that brought the people down. They were living any way they wanted to live because they were now pulled away from truth. Because the whole teaching of the Lord from the Torah would have people walking through life in the right way. But when you see the people of Israel in the Bible doing all kinds of different transgressions, it's because they were going by the teachings of other gods. And they were getting these teachings from, as it says here, the prophets that were lying to them, leading them in the precepts of false gods. And so the people redid their entire lives based on new teachings that let them feel that it is all right to live this other way that was wrong before the Most High. Which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor, as their fathers have forgotten my name for Baal. Now, if you look at that word, their name, where it says, cause my people to forget my name, usually, it says Shem, so usually you're going to think of the name Yahweh or whatever you call the Most High. And it says it also means reputation, fame, glory, and so on. But as I have been studying for a while now, it has come to me that in ancient times, people would often refer to or use name to mean way, as in the way of Jesus or the way of Christ that you hear about New Testament stuff. And they were walking in the way of the Lord and so on. So when you deal with now this here where it says to forget my name by their dreams, it can't just simply be that they've forgotten the name Yahweh, because who's going to forget that easily? Because remember, they're still living in Israel. And how could they really forget the actual name? Because even if there was a righteous person still crying out saying, remember the Most High, remember Yahweh, come back to Yahweh, then there's no way they can actually literally forget the name Yahweh. So it's more that they have forgotten his name, meaning it's like they've forgotten his way, the way that they should walk in, the way of the Lord. They're no longer walking in that way. Why? Because the prophets that were lying to them, deceiving them, teaching them wrong things to follow after other gods, have caused the people to forget the way, the name or the way of the Lord, by teaching the people to walk in other ways, the ways of other gods, the false gods. Just like you've got a lot of people now who say they believe in the Torah, but they are teaching that there is another God that should be followed that gave them their salvation. This Calvary salvation from the so-called Son of God. So they have caused the people to forget His name or to forget the way of the Lord. And they have chosen them new paths and new gods newly come up, which your fathers did not know. So now they walk in a new way, the name of, or the way of Baal. Let's go down to verse 31. Behold, I am against the prophets, saith the Lord, that use their tongues and say, He saith. Continuing, I'm still in Jeremiah chapter 23. Let's do verse 34 to 36. And as for the prophet and the priest and the people that shall say, the burden of the Lord, I will even punish that man and his house. So if you find people living according to the way of Baal or worshiping a different God that David did not worship, Moses did not teach them, and Elijah did not know, that means that they are teaching another God that does not fit in the Torah or Old Testament, but fits in another book or even the New Testament. And the Most High is saying, I will even punish that man and his house. If there is a teacher that's teaching you to worship another God other than the Torah God, that man and his house will be punished. Now you think we're already in captivity, but it says that man and his house will be punished. So these people are going to still get a punishment that fits this, because the Most High's word accomplishes what it's set out to do. So if you are in captivity, your 400-year Egyptian bondage, or however many years you want to call it, that word got fulfilled. Well, then this word says, I will punish that man and his house. That is very scary. So you see why people like myself teach these things? Because we're trying to help people see that this is some very, very serious stuff, and that people need to stop and take a look properly at what they are doing when they come to you and they said, God raised me up to come and teach you this and that. All of us need to be careful, even myself. Verse 35, thus shall ye say, everyone to his neighbor, and everyone to his brother, what hath the Lord answered, and what hath the Lord spoken? And the burden of the Lord shall ye mention no more. For every man's word shall be his burden. So the burden, you got this burden that God rose you up to set up 12 tribes and to come and rescue people and so on. But the Most High, you're there saying you're delivering a word from God to the people. But you have to be careful in what word you are bringing. But the Most High realized things had gotten way out of hand. People are teaching people to worship other gods. So he said, the burden of the Lord you shall mention no more. For every man's word shall be his burden. You must get your word from God for yourself. Because no matter how long you've been reading the book, you must hear from God for yourself. For ye have perverted the words of the living God, of the Lord of hosts, our God. You have perverted the words. And the Bible does say when we are delivered, I think Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31 to 34, that once we're delivered, you won't teach every man anymore saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me. So it's like with this right here, he's saying, you shall no longer mention the burden of the Lord. Why? Because God knows they're lying. So just let the people find me for themselves. For every man's word shall be his burden. That's verse 36, Jeremiah 23, 36. Because the people that are teaching them are just liars, teaching them to worship other gods. And he says, why are they doing this? Because they have perverted the words of the living God. They have overthrown the word of the living God and changed it into something else. And that word perverted there, hafak, it says to change, to transform. So they have transformed or changed the word and changed the teachings of the Most High in order to change the way of the Most High or the name of the Lord so that people can walk under a new name or in a new way, the way of Baal, the way of another God. So when you look at Calvary and you say you are going to take on this God because somebody told me to worship this God at Calvary, to get saved under this God and so on and look to him for my Savior, you'd better be careful what you are doing. Because the Bible says that some people are teaching different things than was in the Torah because they have perverted the words of the living God. And the words of the living God in the Torah did not have people dying on cross for salvation for people left, right, and center. They were doing sacrifices and so on, but even that is wrong, as I have shown in many of my lessons. You are supposed to simply find the Most High in your heart, commune with the Most High in your heart upon your bed, the Bible says, and you will find him. You just use the book as a support to help you. But God is found not in a book, but in your heart. Isaiah chapter 58, verse 13. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. See that part there, speaking thine own words? That again is what I'm saying. Your abomination is in your mouth when you are speaking your own words, because it is not the words of the Lord. If it is not the words of the Lord, it's going to lead people astray, and those who follow you will be destroyed. They cause my people to err, the Bible says, because it's their own words that they are speaking. Their mouths are filled, these false teachers, with abomination, because it's just lies. Lies that another God is the salvation of Israel. Isaiah 59 verse 3 and 4. For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken what? Lies. Your tongue hath muttered perverseness. None calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. He's mentioned the lies again, lies, lies, lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity. So their tongue is just loose with deception. They're speaking lies all the time. Because this new stuff from Calvary is not in the Torah. They did not practice Calvary in the Torah. And what was done before is what should continue, because the Most High is not going to change up his stuff. He says, don't add any more to this book. Deuteronomy 4 verse 2, don't add any more to the word that I command you. So there shouldn't be any new procedure, like at Calvary and so on, getting salvation through trusting in someone at Calvary, a new God. Because it's supposed to be the same stuff, not something new. So another God is not the salvation of Israel, like some teachers are teaching you. Isaiah 51 and verse 8. For the moth shall eat them up like a garment, and the worm shall eat them like wool. But my righteousness shall be forever, and my salvation from generation to generation. Now, the righteousness and the salvation will be forever and from generation to generation. So you cannot get a new righteousness done by a new ritual on Calvary by people who are not Israelites who carried out the ritual, the Roman soldiers and the Roman government. That is a new righteousness. So you cannot get a new righteousness done by a new ritual on Calvary by people who are not Israelites who carried out the ritual, the Roman soldiers and the Roman government. That is a new righteousness. But the Most High says, my righteousness shall be forever. So however they got their righteousness in the Torah is just how you should get it. You can't look to Christ for that, because Christ has nothing to do with that. And my salvation from generation to generation. The same way the Most High had his salvation where he would deliver the people from their oppressors and so on, like in the book of Judges. He says his salvation is just going to operate the same way. You will be saved by me, protecting you, gathering you, taking you, and keeping you safe from your enemies as you continue to keep my commandments and so on, keep my Torah. That's how you're going to be saved. You're always going to be saved by that, by keeping my Torah. We've got an agreement here. You've got a covenant. You keep that, and you do this part, and I do that part, and I do my part. So this is a salvation agreement that operates from generation to generation. That's why every time they went into captivity, like in the book of Judges, the many captivities, and they repented, the same agreement was back there, the way they were trusting in the Most High again for their salvation and their upkeep and their sustenance and so on. Because the salvation is from generation to generation. So after they sinned and went into their captivity and they got delivered, let's say, from some Mesopotamian king in the book of Judges, when they came back, the salvation happened the same way. Why? Because the salvation is from generation to generation. That's Isaiah 51 verse 8. So how does a new salvation happen at Calvary in the time of the Romans in the New Testament? The New Testament is just fake. And those who teach a Calvary salvation, they're just speaking abomination and lies and deception into people's minds. Because the salvation of the Most High from generation to generation should happen just like it happened in the book of Judges. Not a new ritual on Calvary to bring your salvation. You see that even with the prophecy of Moses, that people are coming out of Egypt. It's going to be the same way from generation to generation like it happened in the book of Judges. He's showing you the same kind of stuff. Every time you see that in the Old Testament where they're delivered, it's the Most High gathering them, saving them from the enemies and so on. And there's some type of war that's gone on and so on, or, something like that. And that's what's going to happen in the future when we're delivered from our worldwide Egyptian bondage. It's the same Old Testament style salvation, not somebody dying on a cross for blacks to be delivered all over the world in the future of 2021 to deliver us by a Calvary procedure. No, it's going to be an Old Testament stuff where all these nations, all these countries are going to war now. You got all the different countries making up their nuclear bombs and so on. They're going to go to war and they're going to fight against us and so on. But they're going to fight themselves and then eventually they're going to come after us and so on. And it's going to be an Old Testament style from generation to generation type of salvation. It's nothing new at Calvary. Somebody dying at Calvary cannot save you from missiles that's coming and from whatever they're doing to come against us in the future. You got the water wars, the sky wars, and you got all kinds of other stuff coming. Jesus don't help you with that because Jesus died and people are still sick today of all kinds of sicknesses all over the world. So Jesus stuff on Calvary don't save you. So it's just abomination that's coming into your ears. And if you don't care about that, you should stop reading the Bible and stop praying to God because none of it is helping you. If you can't see this by now. But my salvation is not going to be something new at Calvary, a new kind of ritual run by people who are not Israelites, but are soldiers with swords on their hips and so on. No, my salvation is forever. So the same salvation that the ancients knew, like David knew, Joshua knew, and so on, is the same salvation. Why? Because we don't need to do anything new at Calvary, but my salvation is forever. So salvation from Jesus is wrong, as the Most High's salvation never expired. So if it never expired because it's from generation to generation, that means a new salvation cannot come in play because there is no expiry date on the Old Testament style salvation that the people knew in Old Testament times, when they cried out to the Lord and He came and delivered them from their enemies. That type of stuff never expired. Isaiah 52 and verse 10. The Lord hath made bare His holy arm. See that? Because that's an Old Testament style salvation being talked about here, because you see this bare His holy arm kind of description in the Torah all over, even in the book of Psalms. Why? Because it's the same style salvation that the Most High use all the time. It never expires. It's from generation to generation. The Lord hath made bare His holy arm in the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. So the Most High is saying, when He does His salvation all over again, because this is prophetic right here, the whole earth, the ends of the earth will see the salvation of our God. Why? Because it's us He's saving, as opposed to Jesus saving everybody on earth who wants to come to Him. This is the salvation of our God, and He's saving us. Just like in the Old Testament, it was us He was saving. So what He's saying is that this is not going to change. It's a generation to generation type of salvation. It's a future salvation. So we will see in the future an Old Testament style salvation and rescue, and not a Calvary ritual. New Testament is fake. Any teaching other than the Most High being the salvation and teaching you to trust in another God is nothing but deception, lies, and abomination. The end.